we could very easily have like 4 or 5x the revenue, 4 or 5x the team, 4 or 5x the clients. It wouldn't have been good. I was going down that path, do you know what I mean? Where it's like, this is starting to look destructive now. A lot of entrepreneurs are on the spectrum, and I wouldn't have the business I do if I wasn't autistic. A lot of time, like, people that chase going viral, there's underlying validation needs and wanting to be liked and wanting to be popular. We're in this kind of era where virality is now attainable to literally everyone. Whereas when I was a kid watching Pop Idol, it's like, you've got to find out how to register for Pop Idol, go to the auditions, get through the auditions. Like, there's so many barriers to getting on the stage.
Having a talent as well. Welcome back to the A-Game Unfiltered podcast. Today we are joined by Ash Jones. Ash has built his personal branding agency by helping the likes of Gary Neville, the CEO of Hearn, and much more. He is also the former business partner of Stephen Bartlett. Today we talk about his challenges with autism, what he learnt by surrounding himself with the elite, and what it takes to run a successful business. Enjoy. Ash.
Hello.
What do you do and why do you do it?
I do personal branding for entrepreneurs, and I do it because I'm good at it, and it's the only thing that I'm really good at.
How did you get into that? Because it strikes me as something that you don't necessarily dream about as a kid or anything like that. How did you come into personal branding?
Like most things, you just fall into it. And I was part of a founding team at an agency called Social Chain, which was Stephen Bartlett's agency. And my role there initially was marketing director. And what that meant was trying to like B2B marketing for the agency. So trying to like raise the awareness of the agency itself. And we just figured after a while, the best way to do that was through Steve. And then we saw this idea of like essentially turning him into a bit of what you'd say now, like a content creator, even though people didn't use that term when we started. And we thought, yeah, let's do that. So then that became my job, was to work with him to do that. And we kind of spoke about it a few years prior of like, before Social Chain, like, oh, you should do a YouTube channel or something like this. So it was kind of, even though we'd never spoke about it properly, it was something that was in the air. And then Social Chain gave it a reason. It was like, okay, this can help us drive business in some way, shape or form for the agency. So let's go do that. And yeah, I started doing that and learning about that with him, and maybe did that for like 4 years, I want to say. I didn't know I was learning personal branding. Like, we didn't use that term when we were just making videos and content and putting it out and seeing what happened. Yeah, I did that for 4 years, and then it was like I decided to leave, and I didn't have a plan. But then I just spent a month just like talking to people of like, what do you think I would be good at, given that this is what I've done? And people said back like, oh, helping me with my socials and stuff like that, like other founders. And then yeah, it was like understanding personal branding as a thing, and I was like, okay, that's what I do. So it then went on the whole journey of like learning about that and trying to become good at it, and kind of starting at the bottom after Steve and building up my knowledge of it and things like that. So yeah, next year is my 10th year doing personal branding.
You've got quite the rap sheet. So some of the names, I'm going to embarrass you now, but you've worked with some of the highest performers in the UK, including Gary Neville, Stephen Bartlett, as just mentioned, Julian Hearn from Hearn, Oliver Cookson, the founder of MyProtein, to build their brands, etc. What do you think makes these individuals stand out from your average Joe?
I'd say it's personality, fundamentally. If it boils down to it, I think there's a lot of people that have built great businesses, but then they aren't like, I don't know, like the secret sauce of stardust or whatever it is. There's some people that just walk in a room and they light it up. And there's a guy that we work with called John Amici. He was the first openly gay NBA player, and the first British NBA player to really make it. And this was around like, I want to say he was at Orlando Magic in like 98, 99. And he went on to, after NBA, he went on to be a psychologist, and he now like works with global companies on change management and transformation and things like that. If you hear him talk, he's just unbelievable. Like, I've never heard anyone as articulate as he is. And like with Julian from Huel, different from John, completely two immensely different people. But there's something about Julian that's interesting, and he's got a personality to him. And it's not just that he's built Huel, it's like he's also, there's something about him when you speak to him. Like if I think of the people that I've had the opportunity to work with and why they've managed to like build a profile to the size that they have, it tends to be like, yes, they know a lot of stuff and they've learned a lot of stuff and they've had the experience, but also there's just something about them that makes people listen. And for me, in the role that I do, if that's not there, I can't do it. You need to have something to work with. Like working with Steve for 4 years was the hardest job in the world and the easiest job in the world. The hardest job in the world because he was so driven and he wanted to go where he is now, and you don't get there by not working hard. But it was the easiest job in the world because he's Stephen Bartlett. So for someone trying to help him make content and build his personal brand, it's like you've got all this stuff that just makes it life easy. And yeah, with great influence, like, and all the people I've ever worked with, they tend to have that, and it's like, right, okay, I can do what I need to do, but if they don't have that, it makes it very difficult to do, even if they've built the best business in the world. If they don't have that, it's a bit, it's like trying to get blood out of stone kind of thing.
Yeah, so we were at his show, weren't we? And he referenced you probably about 4 times. You were sat 3 rows behind us. At Manchester, Bartlett show,
Diary of a CEO.
No, the one
Life and Business.
Yeah, the speaking to
So he was sat 3 rows behind us, and I recognised you from LinkedIn anyway. Right. And I said on that night to May, he was like, "I'm going to get Ash on our podcast," and here we are. Because if for someone that successful to reference you as much as he did, I thought must be a testament to the work that you have done together. And that he appreciates the early days and the foundations that likes of yourself, Don McGregor, a couple of other people that he talked about on that night, got him to where he is. And I think that can sometimes be overlooked, which is quite a nice touch.
Yeah, it's a really nice touch. And I think the thing that he's really, really good at is like everyone, and I imagine this is a thing, like I've worked with Gary Neville for the past 3 years now, and he speaks a lot about Sir Alex Ferguson. And this idea of how Sir Alex Ferguson made everybody feel like he knew the names of everyone at Man United. He knew their kids' names, their parents, like everyone's names, and he'd be so personal with everyone. And it's like, that's what great leadership looks like. And Steve's kind of the same. It's like, no matter what stage, like I've not worked with Steve now for 6 years. We're still friends and we still talk all the time, but we've not worked together for 6 years. But he doesn't forget that for 6 years before that we did work together. And the people that are helping him now and the people that helped him in day one, it's all part of this the journey that he's been on. And I think he's really, really good at making everyone, no matter what part of the journey you were at and how far it's been since that or short it's been since that, feel a part of it.
Some big names. You've heard of the saying, who you hang around with is who you become. Obviously you're spending a lot of time with them. Did any of their sort of like standards and habits, did you pick any of them up?
Yeah.
Which ones?
There's one that always stands out is I was at do you know Barry's, the workout class? You've seen it? It's like a studio. It's like a HIIT class.
Okay.
Like an hour-long HIIT class. And I went once with Gary, and we're on the treadmills, and it's coming towards the end. And essentially, what happens is the instructor, at the end of, like, say you've got like 2 minutes of running on the treadmill. At the end of the session, the instructor will go 5, 4, 3, 2. And when 5 starts, I'm like, right, okay, cool, time, bring it down. And he was like, no, you go to 0. Like, you go all the way. And I'm on the treadmill next to him, and he's just like the hardest worker in the room. And in that moment, I was like, this is what you're seeing, like a tiny bit of that, like Man United mentality. And like, he's not playing football anymore. He's not playing football for a long time, but he trains like he's still got a match on Saturday.
It's in his mind, isn't it?
Yeah. And just that little thing of like, when the instructor says 5, 4, don't stop. Because everyone, that's what you tell yourself. You start bringing down the treadmill. He's told stories about how when they were at the youth team at United, on the pitch, there's a corner flag, and some of the lads would go across the corner flag on when they were doing laps of the pitch. And one of the youth coaches was like, at Man United, at every other club, they do the across the corner flag. At Man United, we go round it. He was like, that's the difference here. That a Man United player goes round it. So there's like loads of little things like that you can't help, whether you see it firsthand and you're like, right, okay, that's how this person, like performance, and you see little things that they do and how they operate, and or their analogies that they've had from their experiences. And I think in the work that I do, it's like the reason why I enjoy it so much is kind of because it's like I'm learning so much about how to build businesses, how to treat people, how to like lead your own life, all these knock-on effects of working with high-performing people that have achieved great things. You tend to become a bit of a sponge of things that you don't even realize, like subconsciously. And yeah, working with Gary for the past 3 years, like my behaviors are way different now. And like a simple thing, I never used to drink water. And then Michaela and his team, she was like, Ash, you can't not drink water. And she like hammered me until I just started drinking, and now I drink water every single day.
Yeah.
And it's like if I wouldn't have spent time around Michaela, I wouldn't be drinking water. And it's like the subconscious little things that you pick up from working with these people, that teams that are high performing, like Gary's team are really high performing, Steve's team are really high performing. You can't help but that rub off on you and how you work. So yeah, it's like a really fortunate environment that I'm very like honored to be in, because I know how much I get personally out of working around those people and with those people and all that kind of thing.
The standards are set almost in the dark, and then your results will show in the light, because what you just referred to there, the cutting the corner of the corner flag, that'll be diet. I can have a little bit of that. Man United, we don't have a little bit of that. You know, it's those little things that will compound over a long period of time that will define the, somewhat success to the best at what they do, and I saw a clip from Jimmy Carr, I think he was on Modern Wisdom, and he was like talking about, if you're in the car and you're driving down a somewhat derelict road and you throw a can of pop out of the window when you finished it, that's who you are. When you're in a field with your dog and there's no one else around that does a shit and you don't pick it up, that's who you are. Yeah. That's your standard. You only do it when other people are around because of people pleasing or showing everyone how good you are or whatever. But if you're doing that stuff, that's exactly who you are. And that's how self-esteem can be built, and it's how it can be destroyed. And if you can just start with these tiny little micro habits, where it's the water and can you get outside 15 minutes? Can you eat a little bit healthier today? In 60 to 90 days, you are going to be unrecognizable. And people look at us when we post about it like we've got two heads, don't they? Yeah. It can't be that simple. It can't be that simple. It is. I'm not saying that drinking water and going outside cures depression and, things like that, but it doesn't make it worse. So, the self-esteem can be built very easily, but it can also be destroyed easily. If you keep promising yourself over and over and over again, I'm going to do it tomorrow, I'm going to do it tomorrow, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And my partner started hanging around with a girl who's so positive. She's been amazing for it. She said, we could just do it tomorrow. She goes, why put something off for tomorrow when you could do it today? And it's just such a good phrase, because we all do that, don't we? To an extent. We're like, oh, fuck it, I can't be asked. Tomorrow morning, it'll be fine. Why not just do it now? Because what you're doing right now, it's probably not that important, more often than not. It's probably that extra episode on Netflix that you're needing to sacrifice to get your breakfast prepped, to get your water bottle ready, to get your diary out and make sure that all your meetings are aligned. Because then you're waking up in the morning and you're going, oh, fuck, I really wish I did that yesterday. And it's like, well, if you start doing things now that your future self will thank you for, it's a fucking game changer. Because then you go, shit, I've said something, I've followed through with it, I am capable. Or you go, set myself this huge to-do list, wake up in the morning, don't do it, and go, fucking I'm such a loser. And it's such a common thing. When you surround yourself with the best, as you alluded to there, everything shifts, because they don't cut the corners. They don't do the average shit anymore. Yeah. And you start going, am I doing enough? Am I performing at my best, Obviously you weren't like drinking water before. I'm sure you drank something, but did you, when you started doing those healthy habits, did you feel a difference in like energy, clarity, focus, etc.? Yeah, miles better. And I think it's like, for me, that stuff is twofold. Like you've got to come from a place of wanting to
be open to changing your own habits and behaviors and stuff like that. But I would be completely lost if I wasn't surrounded by the people that they've dragged me kicking and screaming to the place that I'm at now. And I'm very, very aware of how like immensely fortunate, like I'm going through some relationship difficulty at the minute. And the person that I get to speak to has spoke to some of the world's best experts on relationship advice. And he's sharing that with me and helping give me context. And I'm like, this all makes so much sense. Whereas a lot of people don't have someone who's got their own podcast and speaks to some of the world's best relationship experts to give you advice on your own relationship. Steve, for the past decade, Dom, we mentioned there, like, it dragged me kicking and screaming. And yeah, I've gone through a very like 6-7 year complete personal development change. Like you would not believe the person that was there before. And it's as a result of those two things, like I was open to changing and figuring things out, but also the people around me just like immensely helpful.
What was life like before? How did you view the world differently when you were looking after yourself as well?
So I met Steve when I was 25 and he was 18, and I was on job seekers allowance then. So I was just like unemployed and I was signing on. And I didn't have any kind of work ethic in the slightest. And it took about 4 years minimum of him, bless his heart, trying, encouraging, doing everything that he could before I even started to get a bit of one kind of thing. And now it's like, that's there, but it's a 10-year process that I've kind of gone on of trying to like gain a work ethic and know how to operate myself and things like that. And yeah, again, it was like, I had the right people around me, but there was something, I was 25, I didn't have a job, but I was still kind of like, I just felt that there was something around the corner. If I just kept trying things and seeing what was for me and what wasn't and trying to figure it out, then I just had a bit of you just have a bit of an internal belief that something will click and you'll be off. And then I met Steve in 2012, and sure enough, like I'd say it took about 4, 5, 6 years of being around him. Turning 30 was like a big fork in the road point for me. And there's a clip that he sent me, because he used to do vlogs while we were at Social Chain, and in one of the vlogs I was interviewed, and it was me and someone else was interviewed, and it was like, how old are you? And I think I was 30, or I was about to be 30, and it was like, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I said, I was like, I want Stephen Bartlett to be proud of me. And I was like, because I'm not what I can be now, but I know that it's there, and the next 5 years is me kind of like, and I know the faith that he's had in me kind of thing. And he was always very encouraging, like in his words to me, and when he speak to me and things like that. And in that video I said, like, that's the next 5 years from me, like, is making that happen. And I made it happen. But a bit of like self-aware of like, I'm not there yet, but I feel like I can get there with the right path. And fortunately the path worked out for me. There's moments where I could have gone off the rails, and I kind of like pulled myself back and stayed on it.
You said then you're like trying different things, and that's what we talk about. It's just explore your curiosity. A big thing that we do at A-Game is just, not, you don't necessarily have to stop drinking, but just take a break. And just do it for 30 days. But just if you're curious about it, just try it. But a lot of the times we don't try it. Like drinking the water, getting exercising. Try something different. Get out of the gym. Go try CrossFit. Just anything. Because when we look at like personal development, I mean, going back like 6 years ago when I got into it, I was just like yourself, I was just like absorbing stuff. Like I just wanted to try everything. I felt so good. But I think a lot of times people don't do that because they get so stuck in one way, or they don't necessarily try stuff. But that's what we say, isn't it? Give it a go. Try the meditation. Try drinking a bit more water. Just do it for a week, so how different you feel.
For some people, it's like it's more complex. Like take Dom, for example, Dom McGregor at Social Chain. It's like me and Dom both really struggled at Social Chain, and how we struggled and how that played out was very different. I did not really go off the rails. Dom went off the rails, kind of thing, and he had a problem with drinking, and he had to go sober, and all, like, we were in different roles, and he had way more responsibility than I did, but we both still struggled with the experience. I managed to, like, not, I could pull myself back in at certain times and be like, right, okay, do this and do this, whereas Dom just couldn't, and he had to go to a way further bottom than I did to start climbing back up, kind of thing. So yeah, I think with, like, some people, it's a lot deeper than just drink some water, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think everyone's got a different pain threshold, as you've alluded to there. For some people, they will look in the mirror and go, oh, bloody hell, put on a bit. Whereas someone else has to be on the operating table with the surgeon saying, we need to do heart surgery now because you're obese. It's crazy, and they're kind of going through the same thing. But I do a lot of work with people around belief systems and labels that they attach to themselves. So I saw a guy that I used to go to school with in the gym the other day, and I won't say his nickname because it'll give away who he is, but it's a variation of, you know, basically someone being overweight. Essentially, that's his nickname. So along the lines of fatty, basically, but not as abrupt as that. And some of the stories that he was sort of telling himself in the present day, keep in mind he's 36 now, and he first got this nickname when he was 6 or 7. Said, well, you know, I can't be that lean because my body shape won't allow me to be. And I thought, well, when you get stripped away from all the fat and all the muscle tissue and everything else, and you're just a skeleton, I've never seen an overweight skeleton before. So this is a story you're telling yourself. It may be more deep-rooted in your relationship with food. It might be something that your mum or dad said when you were a kid. It might be something that a teacher said or a fellow student said on the schoolyard, whatever. But I need to understand what those beliefs are when I work with clients and how they view themselves, because otherwise we can't possibly change the attachment to it. So as you've said there, it's not as black and white as us saying, you know, can you get outside? Can you do this? Can you do that? We get to the deep-rooted shit, don't we? Because you have to. But equally, the labels that he's carrying around still to this day are, I'm a big guy, I'm thick-set, I can't ever get in that shape. This was all in the space of 5 minutes, and I've not seen him in 2 years. We were just having a conversation about the gym. And I thought, you've just put all this limitation on yourself straight away due to your belief systems. And a lot of people don't feel deserving of happiness. They don't feel like they can attain that happiness. So when they get close to it, they self-sabotage by having the cheesecake on a weight loss journey, by having the JD and Coke when they're trying sobriety, by having the pointless argument with their partner when they're trying to rectify the relationship. And then they're going, shit, why do I always do this? Oh, I'm such a fucking loser. It's like, no, we have to understand what those beliefs are. Where did they begin? Who put it onto you? Because it's not yours. Very frequently, you know, people think that it is, and it's not. It's usually the belief of someone else that has been put onto you, and then you've got evidence throughout the course of your life to back up that belief, because then you can point to it and go, see, told you, because then it gives me an explanation as to who I am as an individual. And that probably is true for Dom until he got to a point where he thought, fuck this, I'm not going through this anymore. I don't want to be miserable anymore. I don't want to be drinking anymore. So I'm going to stop. You know, it sounds like obviously your tolerance for that was just, you got to that point probably a little bit quicker, I would imagine, because your belief systems will be different to him. Yeah. So on that subject, what were some of the beliefs do you feel like you've debunked in the last sort of 5 or 6 years as you've turned a life around? What were some of those destructive beliefs you had before?
The evidence thing that you talk about has been something that's like when I was at Social Chain, and it's something that Steve would talk about a lot, is that idea of like you need to build evidence for being able to do things. It was usually in the setting of like within our careers and the work that we're doing, but it's just a life thing. And I think the last 5-6 years has just been a process of like just build evidence that you can, mostly like doing things like starting a business. I'd say to myself, I'm never going to start a business. I'd often say like, I'm the last person you'd expect to start a business, which is like, it's like a label, a belief that you apply to yourself. And I collected evidence that I could, and then I would tell myself, I'm not good at managing people. I can't manage myself. How can I manage anyone else? And then I collected evidence that I could. and I tried to understand how I do it versus somebody else does it and things like that. I literally said it last night, like the idea of collecting evidence that you can do something and that what has happened before can change. Like you can change the pattern of whatever you've been doing. And I think the past 5 to 10 years has just been, trying to find the evidence that I'm not how I am now and something can change. And I think I've been quite like adept at doing that, where I wouldn't say I've had destructive things. There was maybe one period in like 2015, 16 where I was like borderline somewhere, like I was going down that path, do you know what I mean? Where it's like, this is starting to look destructive now. And I was able to just go like, right, okay, you got a choice. And then I was able to shift and then give myself evidence that I didn't need to go down that path, kind of thing. And I think that's how I've always kind of been over the past 5-10 years, is I've had that ability, which has helped me in certain situations.
Because a lot of the work that you'll do with people obviously is to enhance that brand and what have you, and you're working with people that, like Gary Neville's of the world, they won't give a shit if they get negative comments on social media compared to your average Joe, I wouldn't imagine, because there's a lot of the sort of, I guess, self-worth put in the reactions of others and what have you. Going viral is something that people chase. We talked about this before we started the podcast. Why do you think people chase it? And why is that so destructive for their brand by doing that?
Chasing it is just, it's human nature. It's like when I was a kid, I'd watch like Pop Idol or X Factor and be like, I want to be famous. Like it's built into the human psyche of like underlying need for validation in some kind of way. And you're like, if I'm famous, then everyone adores me and loves me and I'm popular and all these things. Like I wasn't popular in school. And if you're not popular in school, you probably got this idea in your future of like, oh, if I just have that, I'll fix. Again, it's all like childhood stuff, right? And a lot of time, like people that chase going viral, there probably is an element of that in there. Like there's underlying validation needs and wanting to be liked and wanting to be popular. There's some people who it just happens to, and I think a good example is, do you remember that train guy that just became famous? Like Francis Ford.
Yeah, remember that.
Yeah, it's like lockdown.
Yeah. And he just became the biggest thing in the UK. And it's like, I don't think he ever tried to go viral. And there was no, I need validation and insecure. And it's like, for him, it's great. Like he probably didn't fuck up his life. Whereas for most people, they end up getting it. You hear like celebrities say it where it's like, I wish you could become famous because you realize that it's not going to solve any of your problems. And yeah, now, unfortunately, fortunately, depends how you put it, we're in this kind of era where virality is now attainable to literally everyone. Whereas when I was a kid watching Pop Idol, it's like, you've got to find out how to register for Pop Idol, go to the auditions, get through the audition. Like there's so many barriers to getting on the stage, and being famous, there were so many perceived barriers. So
having an talent as well.
Yeah, having talent. Yeah. Whereas now it's like any of us can go viral, and we kind of know that if we do the right thing, it can. Like I've gone viral before, and I think it's a bit like, again, for me, it's not whether it's dangerous or good or whatever. It's just that it's there, and you've got to be aware of why it's there. Like, is it the right thing for you? Is it not? And in the line of work that I do with clients and like personal brand for entrepreneurs, it plays such an interesting role because on the one hand, you're trying, like my job is to make the people I work with technically more famous than they were yesterday, kind of thing. Like that's a part of it. But when you're in business, it's not just like fame plays a role. And it's really important for businesses, this idea of fame. And it's not celebrity, it's just like awareness and people knowing who you are and what you do. But it's not the whole piece of the pie when it comes to business. Whereas if you're a Instagram travel influencer, that's pretty much the whole job. It's just like reach as many people as you can and be famous with it. Whereas within business, it's like you're trying to build reputation, trust. You might be trying to sell. You might be trying to get investment, like you might be trying to, there's so many things going on that it's not just about going viral, it's not just about being famous. And actually a lot of the things that you have to do are not ever going to send you viral in a million years. They're more about like positioning you in a certain way and trying to get across what you're about. And we had a conversation with a client recently, and it was like, the content that we create throughout a month, say there's like 20 pieces, we broke it down and we were like, 5 of these are only ever going to stand a chance of going viral, quote unquote. The other 15, they're not even trying, like they're not engineered to do that and for that purpose. These 5 are to achieve this, these 5 are to achieve this, and these 5 are to achieve this. And therefore by doing that, you've got this nice rounded kind of balance of the goals that you're trying to achieve, which one of them is to grow your audience and grow that audience to the right people and not the wrong people. Whereas I think a lot of people just look at it as like money counter go brrr, like followers just go up. And sometimes what's the point? Like there's got to be more to it. And I think that's like the work that we do, is trying to create a balanced and sustainable thing of most people are going to be in business for the next 20, 30 years that we're working with. So we need to still make them relevant in 10, 20, 30 years. Whereas I think sometimes if you build a big audience and it's the wrong audience, or you've gone about it in the wrong way, it's going to be short-lived and you're not going to get that chance again. Like once you've built a reputation, it's kind of set. It's hard to undo and start again and go away and come back completely like fresh. So yeah, we're kind of like, we approach it from a long-term brand building, sustainable, you're still relevant in 10, 15, 20 years kind of way. And virality comes into that, but it's not the whole piece of the part. And it's virality in the right way as well. Like we've got clients that have gone viral, but for me, it's like, I wouldn't get annoyed. I get frustrated when it's for the wrong, like they should never have even gone viral for
that thing.
Yeah.
Like they've gone viral for it's pointless.
Yeah.
Whereas when they go viral for the right thing, and there has been instances like the last couple of weeks, there's been something for a client that went viral, and I'm like, that is literally the perfect thing that you should have gone viral for, because it's speaking to your identity, it's linking into the business that you run, like it's ticking all the boxes of brand building, and it's gone viral. Perfect. And I think that's the thing that not a lot of people think about. It's fine if you're not in the world of business, but if you're in the world of business, it's not just a fame game. Like there's much more going on there. Trust, reputation, like all those things that play a way more important role than going viral. And I think sometimes people can get caught up now in like the chase for engagement and numbers, and they'll do things that actually long-term harm their offline reputation for the sake of their online reputation. And yeah, it's in the world of business, I think there's quite a lot of misguided action that might feel good in the moment and looks good on the sheet of paper with how much their audience has grown and what numbers they've done and all this kind of thing. But actually, if you scratch under the surface of it, it's probably not the right thing to do. And one day they'll look back and think, was that the right thing to do?
Yeah, because we've seen that, haven't we, with because we recently started doing business coaching as well.
Yeah. Not
so much shouted about it on LinkedIn and things. We're sort of doing it in the background, but we've had quite a number of clients now, 15, 20 clients that we've helped. And it's a mixture of business coaching and life coaching together. But when we look at their LinkedIn, we go, oh, you seem to be getting quite a lot of engagement. You're getting all these likes. You've got double or triple the amount of followers than we have. So all good converting. It was like, well, no, I've got like 1 client, 2 clients. Like, what's going on there then? Yeah. So it's interesting. So like that you were saying, just chasing the likes, but it's all for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, we won't get on invited to panels and things because our joint following on LinkedIn's like 16,000, but we're doing considerably more than that as a financial thing monthly. Whereas there's other people that might have, say, 50,000 followers and they're doing 5K a month.
Yeah.
And they're going on all these panels about how to 10x your life and how to, do this and do that and do the other. And I think part of the reason why some personal branding people give it a bad name is because they don't have a brand. All they're saying is you need a personal brand. With no more information. So they're just saying, speak with authenticity. You need to have a personal brand. Okay, well, how the fuck do I do that? Like, what do you mean? You know, so it's not actual tangible advice. Like any industry, there's so many coaches that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and we know that.
Yeah.
You know, they're telling you that you have to have clarity, and they're telling you have to be in good shape, and they're fat, miserable, and otherwise, you know, it's crazy.
Within that, it kind of points to what I was saying about the importance that the virality or follower piece plays, is that I remember going to meet a guy who ran an agency in 2016, and he complained to me about someone else who had just started an agency, and he was like, we've been doing this for 4 years, we've worked with this client, this client, this client, and that guy has just turned up, and all of a sudden he's getting in meetings that he should never be getting in. And I'm like, that's because he's putting himself out there more than you are, and he's got more followers than you do. And whether we like it or not, human psychology tells us that like a number on somebody's profile indicates some level of importance of that individual, and the unfair weighting in opportunity based off somebody's online social presence, that like you say, someone else could have 10 times the knowledge, but if they've not got that social proof element to go along with it, they're just not going to get the opportunity. And that's kind of like you need the whole piece. Like, it'd be easy for us to sit and say to clients, like, don't focus on the numbers, like do the brand building piece, reputation, trust, all that kind of thing. But I know the role that the numbers and social and follower and all that thing plays. So it's like just trying to make sure that the balance is there, because you need that, like you need to be one of the most followed people in your industry to get the opportunity to go speak on stage. And then when you're there, you can give all the knowledge and look better than everyone else, because you actually know your shit where other people don't. And I think a lot of the time there's maybe like a group of people or people that I speak to who won't do the personal brand thing because they have all the knowledge and they're smart, and they kind of like, well, I don't need to do that. And it's like, no, you do. Like whether we like it or not, followers, popularity, whatever, within business, it plays, especially when it's personal as well, like personal profile, it plays an important role.
Yeah. We said about going on like TikTok, for example. So I've gone viral, probably mega viral twice to the tune of millions, once on TikTok, once on LinkedIn. And the TikTok one, we went viral, and it was good in the sense of thousands and thousands of new followers and what have you. The comments were just as vile as you can imagine, and it was just a video of me. We've tried in like we're in the studio now. I've tried it big productions with fancy lights and cameras and all the rest of it, and it looks amazing. And you'll get like 400 views, and I'm just out on a walk, selfie, just talking.
Viral off a phone.
Yeah,
in winter with a woolly hat on.
Yeah, and the wind's going in the background.
Welcome to TikTok.
Yeah, and it got like 2 million views, thousands and thousands of comments, whatever. And it was loads of people just having a go because I was talking about being alcohol free and why you should take a break and whatever. So it was interesting that if you were to be a behavioural psychologist and read through the comments and seeing people like defending me who don't know me, other people insulting me and hoping that I crash my car that don't know me and stuff like that is crazy. And then you go on to like Reddit and you Google your name on like LinkedIn Psychopaths, I think it's called, as a page. I'm featured in it like 4 times. You know, I was going to do a post like taking the piss out of it, saying I've been featured in 4 articles online. Sadly, you know, people. One guy put, I just look at him and think wanker. I was like, you can't not find that funny. So I found it hilarious, but. Yeah, we have done it in the positive, and we've done it in the negative, and we've had other posts where you'll get 10 reactions, you'll get 2 new clients. You'll have another one that's got 10,000 reactions, and you'll get 0 clients. It's crazy. So we've said, like, as a new strategy going forward, we want to build our TikTok. So when you do reach out to go on to the bigger platforms, because they won't know us from, you know, pardon the pun, they won't know us from Adam in a sense yet, and we know we're fine with that. But if you can go up to them with the leverage of saying, look, we've got 100,000, 200,000 followers, for example, on TikTok, because the LinkedIn for us is the trust builder, isn't it? That's where we want to really make our name for ourselves. But then the TikTok side of it, we're kind of like, well, it's all right. If I reach out to Joe Blogg's podcast that gets millions of viewers and I can say we've got hundreds of thousands of followers, they're much more likely to get me on than going, I've got 13,000 on LinkedIn. They'll be like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
With the whole personal brand thing, there's a lot of blurred line between personal brand and social media and content. Like they're two entirely different things. And I saw a post this morning that was personal brand, but then all it talked about was like content and social media tactics. Social media and content and all the tactics around that, that's a vehicle for personal brand, and personal brand has nothing to do with social media in the slightest. Like how you use the platform is a social media tactic, but the personal brand is platform agnostic. And the idea is like understand the personal brand, the identity, what are the goals around it, how are you trying to position yourself, who are you trying to be in the world, how are you trying to show up, all those things. And then you go, right, okay, I'm going to do this via social media because that's the tool that is right there and it's easiest, or you do it through podcasting or whatever it is. And then you go, right, okay, given the laws of the platform or medium that I'm using and my identity and personal brand strategy, how do I bring those two things together? And personal branding at the minute is not even, personal branding is not considered. It's just social media tactics and content tactics. And on LinkedIn, like the best hook, you'll go viral if you write the right hook, and it's like, that's not personal brand. And I think there's a lot of, you say about like personal brand maybe has a bad rap or something like this, is, you know, I think it's partly because the confusion with, and it plays into the virality and likes and doing the wrong thing. And it's like, they're two entirely separate disciplines. Like I've been in the social media game longer than I've been in the personal branding game, because I was at Social Chain, which was like one of the world's biggest social media agencies. And for me, it was like, I learned about social media before I learned about personal branding. And then I learned about personal branding and I was like, superpowers, bring them together. Like, and social media is not personal branding and personal branding is not social media. You could build a personal brand without being on social. You don't need social media platforms. You could have a podcast and it goes on Spotify. And like, does Tim Ferriss have social? I don't know. I don't follow him.
Yeah, it will be on it personally.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. And if he didn't, it wouldn't matter. Like, he wouldn't need it because his podcast is so good. And he's understood how to build, and he's understood the world of podcasting, and he's understood Tim Ferriss and brought those two things together. And that's kind of like a bit of an issue with personal branding that I think exists, is like, people just think it's just social media and how do I become famous on LinkedIn? As you're not thinking about personal brand and going, right, okay, personal brand, I'm going to execute that on LinkedIn. How do I best do that? How do I learn everything I need to know about LinkedIn and the rules and laws of the platform and bring my personal brand into that? Whereas people are just going, how can I become famous on LinkedIn?
Do you think it's like a chicken and egg scenario in that you build your personal brand, then you get a better reputation, or is it that you've got a big reputation and then you work on the personal brand?
In the world of business, if you can't, I think it's really hard to build a really good profile if you've not done, like if you've not executed. And there's a school of thought of like, there's people that have a high profile in a social media audience, but they've actually they've not achieved anything in business. And I think you mentioned it before about like the coaches, they go up on stage and they talk about this and they talk about that, but they've not actually, they're just talking about it. They've not actually done it.
Yeah.
And in the world of business, that's really, really important. And there was a guy that I was having coffee once, and someone came up to me and was like, I messaged you 4 years ago asking, should I build my personal brand? And you told me no. And it's the best thing that I could have heard at that time in relation to personal branding. And he's like, now 4 years later, he's got a really good business. There's 30 people. He's got like 30,000 followers. He's like, my personal brand's just starting to work now. But 4 years ago, you told me not to build one. And I was thinking, why did I had to sell personal brand? And I went back through my messages and saw like 4 years ago, he was like, I'm just starting this business. Should I build my personal brand? And he followed Steve and he was a fan and things like that. And he'd learned about personal branding and was like, should I do that? And I was like, go build a business. Because like obviously he said he was a fan of Steve, and I was like, Social Chain was doing really well. And then Steve started to build his personal brand, and everything started to compound. Like Social Chain compounded off him. He compounded off like all that. But he was, for 2 years, he didn't have a personal brand. He had a really growing business. And yeah, I think in the world of business, you have to have that first, or you do them both at the same time. I don't think one could lag behind the other, where it's like the business catches up to your profile and it's just the potential's there. But if fundamentally in the world of business, if you've not got that, I think it's very hard to have like a long-term personal brand, because you're going to get caught out at some point. Like people will end up, you see it with like people that sell courses and stuff, and it's like, you don't actually know how to execute on the stuff that you're talking about. And in business, personal branding within business, it is very much like people are taking inspiration, advice, action, all these things from what you're doing. So if you don't actually know what you're talking about, it's going to catch you out at some point in the world of business. It might not in other worlds. You can get away with it, or you can get away with it for a lot longer. And that's a reputation piece. Like you'll have somebody who will sell you something and then they can't deliver. They're really good at selling it. They're really bad at delivering it. There's your reputation. It's gone. It's been damaged by that person, and it's like death by 1,000 cuts. And in business, reputation is everything.
Yeah, 100%. With your business, your team, you've led a team for quite some time now.
6 years. Yeah.
6 years. Yeah. How many people in the team?
Seven.
One a year.
Yeah.
We're in our sort of like next building phase. What are some of the mistakes that I need to avoid when building out a team?
Again, I've been like quite fortunate I was part of Social Chain, and I wasn't a co-founder, but I saw very close what happened. And that went from like 0 to 100, 120 people in the space of 2 years as an agency. And I've had people that I've met in business, friends and clients, that they've all like gone through a build of building a business. And you kind of like, the work that we do means that we have to speak to people about those experiences and the lessons, the things they got right, the things they got wrong. Like we're farming all that stuff from them for content. So you kind of get this, like, as a founder myself, I'm like, oh, that's interesting that you've just said. Like I'm going through that now and I don't know how to deal with it. And they point out things to me that help me to avoid obvious pitfalls that I've seen other people running businesses do. And I'm like, I know how what you've just done there plays out in 2 years. I already know. So I'm like able to avoid it because I've seen other people go through it. And yeah, it's just helped me a lot. And I feel like I've avoided so many obvious pitfalls to fall into from the result of being exposed to other people going through them and them talking about it to me. And I think I've had a very slow and steady approach to building great influence, which is part born out of like the belief thing again. Like I'd never set out to run a business and I'd be the last person. So naturally, I think I'm going to take it a lot more slower, because you just like, am I doing the right thing? Am I not? But also the experiences that I've heard from other people has meant I've taken a bit longer with things and seen how if you rush into things in business, it's like, what was that thing that was in the Suez Canal? Like the thing that it just couldn't turn around. It was stuck, the boat. It's like, you can't, a business, you can't just change back. A friend of mine, he built an agency that he ended up like liquidating and ending. And he did a podcast and spoke about the experience. And he said that he was like, the problem was once we'd got so far, we got to like 20, 30 people and we had like 40, 50 clients. I couldn't just turn it around. And I knew it wasn't working anymore. And you're just kind of like stuck at that point. And I think that's always stayed with me, of the idea, like, just know that if you make a decision, it's so hard to reverse that decision in business if it's a big one as well. So that's kind of always been my approach. And it's a bit like you've got to find the balance of the pros and cons of it, like going overly slow and overly undecisive and things like that is a difficulty with it. But I think it's served well so far in these 5-6 years of just taking time, making sure things are right. Like we could very easily have like 4-5x the revenue, 4-5x the team, 4-5x the clients, and it's just not, it wouldn't have been good. And we'd have had to turn around and come back. And part of it as well is just like knowing what you want. Like, what do you want out of a business as well? Like, are you building something that you will enjoy and you will want to do in 10 years? Or are you building something because you think that you've got to build it, and then you get there and you're like, I fucking hate this. And I've known people that have done that. So again, it's like, I've had that in mind and been like, right, okay, make sure you're not doing that. And yeah, that's kind of been my approach with things.
Yeah, 'cause we took on a new business coach a few weeks ago, and he said, really simple phrase, that people can either propel you forward or they can anchor you. And, you know, not just clients or, you know, whatever, it's people in your personal life, it's your own mindset, it's everything. We had to really look at what was anchoring us or slowing us down, not because they're bad people or anything like that. It's just, what is the destination? Put it in your proverbial sat nav, get the plan, and then execute. It might be family, it might be friends, it might be a standard that you have that you need to let go of. Is it propelling you forward, or is it keeping you at best stuck, or at worst really holding you back from fulfilling your potential? So you're neurodivergent, right? Yes.
I'm autistic and ADHD for my sins.
Yeah, so I'm dyspraxic and have ADHD, so we've nearly got the full collection.
Yeah, I don't know what I've got. I feel left out.
Yeah. So don't worry, you're just as weird as me. That's fine. But yeah, what age were you diagnosed?
December 22, so 18 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm 36 now, so like I just turned 34.
Me too. Yeah, I found out about the dyspraxia at 15, and it made me understand so much about myself, because a lot of people don't know what dyspraxia is still. It's mainly hand-eye coordination. It's mainly when your writing's pretty poor, and you're looking up at the blackboard and you're going, the word's there, and then you're writing it down so quick, and you look up again and now it's gone off the blackboard because the other kids need to crack on, and you're going, shit, I can't even read my own writing now. So it was so frustrating for me at school. And it's things like using scissors, riding a bike, struggle with that. You know, you thrive off really deep conversation. Yeah. You don't like surface level bullshit. Tiny weird little things like physical labels in your t-shirt that some people might go, oh, it's a bit annoying. For me, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, it's the same as
horrible.
My parents used to cut on labels.
Yeah, horrible. Like so bad. And but yeah, when I got the diagnosis, it made me understand a lot about myself. And to be honest with you, I am sort of self-diagnosed around ADHD, but it's not just a case of Google 10 things and look at it. I've done paid tests, I've done all sorts, I've read about it, I've listened to podcasts. I'm like, this is literally
deep dive
me.
on Reddit.
Yeah, this is me. Like reading it. So, how did it impact you when you first heard it? Did you feel finally that you understood yourself? Did it? You know, was it negative? Was it positive? How did you respond?
So again, it's like luck of being around the right person. And Ellie Middleton is like probably one of the leading neurodivergent influencers, creators, however you want to put it, in the UK. She sat next to me for like 6 months every single day because I hired her to work at Great Influence. And she'd just been diagnosed with ADHD. And she was quite vocal about that. She hadn't been diagnosed as autistic yet. She kind of went through that while she was at Great Influence. And I was just the employer. And I was like, I have no idea what this is. And she sat next to me talking about it. So I had to try to, like, as an employer, be like, what does that mean for me? Like, do I have to handle her a bit different? Or like... I just went on that. That was it at first. I didn't know what ADHD was. And she would sit next to me, and Ellie is like, she is what you see online. Like, she talks a lot online about it. She does the same offline, in person, when she was going through that whole thing. And she'd be sat next to me saying, like, explaining it and things like this. And I was like, oh boy. And then I went off and did my own kind of research and stuff like that, like you do. And then quite quickly got like an ADHD diagnosis. And at that point, I kind of was like, right, okay, this makes a lot of sense. But then about a month or two later, I was just like, something's still not right. And it feels like ADHD is just I don't know, I've optimized my understanding 10 to 20%. And then I started reading about autism and being autistic. And weirdly enough, my partner that I've been with for 7 years is autistic, but he's undiagnosed. And he's also not like, he's not the type of person that will go learn about it and understand. He'll just like, okay, I'm pretty sure I am, and people are pretty sure I am. So it was never a thing we spoke about, and it was never a thing that I learnt about, and all these kind of things. And then I started thinking that maybe I was, and I went on that journey of just trying to understand it. And that being the autistic one is a little bit more, it was more challenging for me, and from what I've read, it's more challenging for people. The acceptance that you might be is a lot more. It's like I'm gay, and when I was younger, I was like, no. Yeah. It's real challenging to go through that process, and it's the same with like being autistic. Whereas ADHD was very like, it was acceptable a lot more. It's being spoke about, all that kind of thing. Whereas autistic's kind of got a bit more stigma to it.
It's sometimes used like an insult, isn't it?
Yeah. And you just like, even in popular culture and media, it's like the weird kid is autistic and things like that. So there was a bit more of a challenging process for me, and it was like denial at stages. And then I was like, I'm just going to get diagnosed anyway, like go through the process. And it was over a couple of weekends, and in between 2 of the sessions I read a book called Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devon Price, and I listened to it, the audiobook, and I was just like, I don't even need the next session. I don't need the certificate. I don't know if I am yet, because I'm going through the diagnosis now and it's over 3 sessions. I don't need it. I feel this so deeply in my bones now from listening to this. And yeah, at that point I was like, okay, time to understand everything about this. And like you say, that thing, like everything made, when you found out at 15, everything made sense. Same thing at 34, like everything just makes sense. And again, kind of like the me and Dom at Social Chain thing, I was fortunate that my turning on the lights and unbundling trauma was quite straightforward, and it didn't throw me. Whereas like Ellie really struggled with unbundling all the trauma that comes with realizing something like that and looking back at your entire life and going, and I just was fortunate that I was able to kind of like frame it in the right way and have the right mindset towards it. And there wasn't too much bad trauma there, and my life was in a good place now. And I kind of like, even before that, I'd accepted my entire past and moved on. So that comes in and I'm like, okay, that everything makes sense now, but that doesn't bring me, it's not spiraled me or anything like that. So it was more just like, okay, how do I live now? And how do I balance now?
So for me, like things like ADHD and autism, so I learned about it on my degree, but again, I'm just being lectured at, you know, when I've got a nutritional therapist, so I have to learn it from that sort of understanding when you're working with clients. And that's kind of like when I've, you know, started learning about it, but especially ADHD, when we started working together, I learned a lot from you. But on the autism side, like, I only know what I know from what I've read, but how, like, just so I can understand what happens is, like, do you feel uncomfortable in here? Is it a social thing? Is it?
No, and I think my understanding of it is like it part of the problem is that what it's understood to be is not the case. So when I was going through the diagnosis process and I talked to friends about it, they're like, you're not. Because their understanding and my understanding of it is like, if you're autistic, this, and I did none of those things. And then listening to that book, one of the things it said was like, one thing autistic people do is like stimming, and they do it to soothe stress or anxiety. Like stimming typically is like I don't know, kid might be stood there like this, and they're self-soothing. It's like that's calming them down.
Okay.
Yeah, so
because they're stressed. Or
my niece has got it. She's been diagnosed with it. She's 9. When she was younger, when she was a toddler and couldn't speak, it was a bit of a challenge, you know. She'd sort of like her tantrums would go for like 3 hours. Like, what's wrong? But then later on, when she got to school, and she, because my sister lives in Dubai, so they've had quite a bit of support out there through sort of the private and whatever. And she had a lot of help. And her thing, like you said, it's not that, it's this.
Yeah,
it's this. It's
stimming.
Right.
So when she was in that, she's feeling overwhelmed or the experience, and she just does this. And that's her technique. She's 9. But yeah, if she's in like a sort of social situation, not every time, but she might just go.
It's something just to do. I used to do it with labels as a kid.
Yeah.
I'd have a label between my hands and I'd just roll it back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's like soothing, and that's stimming. And when I listened to this book, the Dr. Devon Price, she said stimming can be as extreme as like clapping your hands to as subtle as biting your nails. Look at my nails.
Yeah,
This is the thing. I bite mine. I bite mine.
yeah.
And when she said that, I was like, And everything that I understood about being autistic, that I was like, it's not me because I don't do that, that, and that. And then I realized the fundamental of like, not the action, but like stimming. The action can look different for people, completely different. Like stimming for one person can look different from the other. But for the first time, I started to understand the underlying thing. Like stimming is the underlying thing, and that means that you're doing some kind of action to self-soothe yourself in moments of stress. Yeah. And then I was like, that's playing out for me in this way, and I started to find people who were similar in that. And I've got like a lot of like diet issues and sensory issues around food and things like that, and I just thought I was a fussy eater. No. And I think that's a difficulty with autism, is like if you Google it, it comes up with a list of things and you go, that's not me. But what it's not actually doing is teaching you the underlying of why those things happen, and then you can start to see yourself in those processes. So that was it for me. It's like what it is for me. I've been with a partner who's autistic for 7 years. We're entirely different.
Yeah.
In how it plays out, and how we're autistic is entirely different. Yeah. And I think like that's part of the issue with it, is like education around how it actually manifests in the different ways is really different for people. And there's a public knowledge of a set of things. And if you're not that, you just think you're not it. But
that's why I asked the question, because in a lecture.
Yeah, so I could sit here and say, this is how I'm autistic, like the bite nails, do this, like take, for example, if my partner was here right now, he'd never do a podcast in a million years, but I'm quite able, like, I'm fine with it. There's no problem. And the lights are on, speaking, whatever. That's not my part of the spectrum. Mine shows up in different ways.
It's kind of like musicians then, isn't it, in a sense, is what I'm making out in my brain is I like to work in metaphors or analogies or whatever all the time. And it's like, I think people's misunderstanding is that everyone can play the piano, when in reality you can play a variety of different instruments and it looks so vastly different for every single individual. And I remember watching Scrubs years ago, and Dr. Cox was talking to one of his other friends who's like, they had a bit of a rivalry about whose kid's the most intelligent and who's the best surgeon and da-da-da-da-da. And he saw his friend's son playing with building blocks, and he did it rapidly compared to his child. And he said, I think your son's got autism. And he took it as an insult. He's like, oh, just because my kid beat your kid. He's like, no, look at the patterns of this colour. Look at the patterns of this colour. Look how efficiently and how quickly he did it. He's definitely got autism. And I remember at that time, you sort of hear it at that age, I think maybe 16, 17 or whatever, and you'd associate even then a difference in the brain, but also like a bit of obscurity, because it was said with such a negative connotation, like he's got autism. It was kind of said like that. Yeah. And there's a member of I'll just say my family, so again it doesn't get pinpointed to anyone, that their child is potentially got autism, but sometimes the way he's spoken about, it's really disparaging. And he's just a little person that's finding his own way. He's 3. Like, he's not as developed as other children at 3, but he's super developed in other areas. He's way more aware of himself. He's aware of his surroundings. He just likes to play on his own. Doesn't like to interact with the other children. But that doesn't mean it's bad, good, or indifferent. It's just what it is. Yeah. But I think there is such a huge stigma attached to that, but also other areas of the neurodiverse community, unfortunately, where you get pigeonholed, and someone that's lively, ADHD, you must have it. Or when you go, I've got ADHD, people go, oh yeah, we know, like it's a bad thing. And like, well, it's also I don't like using the phrase superpower, because I don't think that's the case at all. For me, I find it actually quite draining a lot of the time. It's exhausting with the thoughts being on loop like this and what have you. Do you frame it in your mind as a air quote superpower, or do you see it as a ball ache, or is it just what it is?
It just is what it is. Yeah. And I don't really not that I don't think about it, I just don't obsess over it. And I try to understand how it plays out for me in both the good and the bad. And like special interest, I've definitely in the past 2 years leaned way more into the things I'm deeply interested in, because I know that's part of like the joy of autistic is like you throw yourself so deeply into certain interests and you kind of allow yourself to do that a bit more than maybe you did before, because something might be like, oh, I don't do that anymore because I did that when I was a kid. But no, you would still enjoy it now. You're just thinking that you don't do it because you're an adult now. And it's like, no, it's part of the autistic joy thing, like lean into certain things. So it's just, for me, it's like understand the pros and cons and don't put more weight on the cons than the pros and the pros and the cons. Just understand it and try to like design your life a little better. And my life is a little better, and it's more of a struggle than it was before now that I know as well. Like it's a number of things, you know what I mean? It's just, I try to just, it is what it is kind of thing, but not be ignorant to it. Like I know where it's at play and I understand it, and I make sure that I'm doing what I can to, navigate the difficulty of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because like when you said, do you see it as a bit of a superpower? Because I know when you,
It's
in our business,
it's right.
Smith's more of the, should we say, entrepreneur in the way that he comes up with all the ideas. He's like, ideas, fuck this, like that. And I'm like, fuck, where did that come from? That's amazing. But my brain goes, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
How do we do that? Because I'm more analytical.
Yeah.
I look at everything in detail, look at data, and I'll sit and ponder like I've done on this. I've been listening to you. That's what I do. I sit and ponder and absorb. But yeah, do you see that as like a superpower?
No, I find it a lot of the time it's an explanation as to why my brain is wired the way that it is. But like the week just gone, for example, Mayhew's been away. And because we've got the business to a point now where we don't need loads of clients, similar to what you were talking about, you just need higher quality clients. So people say to me like, oh, I bet you're busy all the time. I'm like, no, not really. I'm like, what? Like 2 or 3 calls a day sometimes. They're like, oh, but this week I've had a week of only 5 calls all week, or last week. And I'm looking at my schedule going, shit, I've got hardly any clients. I've got loads of time. Mayhew's away. Monica's part-time now. Amanda was away for a bit, and I'm like, shit, like what the fuck am I going to do? Because there's always another message to send. There's always one more piece of copy you can write. And I got sort of quite, overwhelmed last Sunday looking ahead at my week going, shit.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of the delivery of the client work as well. So I was almost having to structure my day in as regimented as I possibly can, and then that doesn't work for me. So I go, right, just give yourself a to-do list. And on the Monday morning, I must have put 25 things on my to-do list. And from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m, I'd done them all. But I was so fucked after it, like so drained from 3 till 6 until I was playing football. And I did nothing. Yeah. I was just like literally like someone's taking my batteries out. And then Tuesday morning after I played football, I woke up again. I've been at the gym and I was like, shit, I did nothing. But then on Tuesday afternoon, I smashed out a load of work again. So I wouldn't say it gives me an advantage per se. I wouldn't say it's a superpower or anything. I've just kind of, similar to what you've just said there, mate, learn to accept what is, learn to love what is, know thyself and not kid thyself, because to know and not to do is not to know. So if I know I'm going to be exhausted and I carry on working, I'm not knowing then, am I? It's like the fat person eating pizza going, where's my 6-pack? You're not, I know how to get in good shape. Well, you don't, because you're not. So give yourself that grace, give yourself that time, regulate your emotions more. Sometimes you might just need a fucking sleep.
Yeah,
because you're just
a bit of a break.
Yeah, your brain is just constantly going on the hamster wheel. So I think it has huge advantages over certain people, but then I think there's other areas where you go, what the fuck is wrong with me? But I've learned to have the compassion and empathy for when it's not going well, and I've learned to have the humility to go, I can do good stuff when I want to.
Yeah, I think
that makes sense.
A lot of entrepreneurs are on the spectrum, and it's like I wouldn't have the business I do if I wasn't autistic. And there's entrepreneurs that are on the spectrum and they've gone on to do great things as a result. There's musicians, there's athletes, there's this, there's that. But then only 20% of autistic people are employed. So there's 80% of autistic people are unemployed. Is it a superpower?
Yeah.
For some it is. And even within that, it's contextual to the person. Like you might say, for me, it's like with great influence, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't autistic. But also running a business burns me the hell out a lot of the time. So it's like pro and con.
Well, you know where we are, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's people who are like, you know, non-verbal, and it's like, no, none of this is a superpower. Like every single day is a challenge. So again, it's like there's such a wide spectrum of experience that you can't, is it this, is it that? It's entirely different for everyone.
To finish, mate, we always like to ask this question. What does being on your A game mean to you?
Just doing the little things. I've always found that like whenever I've lost my way, if I get back to the little things, then everything starts to build from there. And the little things for me are like, go for the short run. Don't try do the 10K. Just do the 20-minute run that you know you can easily pop out. Or make sure that you drink water today. Or try to eat at the right time. Or like those tiny, tiny little things. And whenever I'm on my A game, all those are locked in. And the rest takes care of itself. And whenever I'm in a rut, I just have to get back to those things. And then the path kind of starts to build from there. So yeah, that's been on A game to me.
Amazing.
That's something that we talk about, the 1%.
Yeah.
Just can you just drink a bit more water today? If you didn't, you know, I would say from a nutritional side, I'm like, look, you can eat better with your next meal. So our next meal is lunch, you know, just make it slightly better than yesterday's lunch. 1%. That's it. Yeah, small little steps.
Yeah, so we're going to put all your details in the show notes, mate, but where can people find more out about you?
I'm probably most active on LinkedIn. To be fair, Ash Jones on LinkedIn, founder of Great Influence, I think is my bio.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming on today, mate.
Really good, thanks.
Amazing.